And we're in chapter 11. Let's just go through 10 first. So Solomon has built up his kingdom, and as part of that, Queen of Sheba, I always say Queen Sheba for some reason, but it's Queen of Sheba, visits Solomon. His wealth and his wisdom exceed all of that of all the kings of the earth. This visit, I think, is something that I've found interesting. For some reason, it doesn't mention much about Queen of Sheba, but she seems like a wise person herself. She seems very switched on and a good person. I don't know much about her, but I've always liked that. I always felt that she was in touch with what was important. Anyway, let's get to chapter 11. We've got a lot to get through. This is the horrible chapter, so I just kind of want to get through it, really. Solomon marries non-Israelite women, and his wives turn his heart to worship false gods. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. Now, on the right-hand side, it does give you more of a description of this. Why was it wrong for Solomon to marry foreign wives? When Solomon married many strange women, he violated the Lord's commandment not to marry outside the covenant, and we'll look at that in the next verses really easily. It almost seems like the commandment was speaking directly to Solomon. The Hebrew word translated as strange in the King James Version means foreign. Many of these marriages were likely motivated by political and economic factors. While some of Solomon's marriages were authorized by the Lord, many were not. The marriages that were not authorized by the Lord were abominable before him. Solomon's decision to marry outside the covenant tragically led him to turning his heart away from the Lord. I did this last night, and I did the same thing, said strategically instead of tragically. Just thought that was interesting. Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you. For surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. So you see, it just sounds like it's directed right for him, even though it was given like 400 years before. He had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. I don't know if he had 1,000 women or not. That's not the point. The point is that it turned away his heart. For it came to pass that Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods. Notice he's old. Remember, he has served for 40 years as king. So if this is in his later years, in his, he served for 30. Remember all the things he did in the temple. This is now, 30 years later or something like that. And we have to put it in that perspective. There could have been a lot of things. He could have been very faithful for the first 20, 25 years easily, which is almost a lifetime for some people. I don't want to take that away from Solomon. He built his kingdom. He was very good at doing what he did, and the difference between this and the person who set up the temple and built the temple is night to day. And it wasn't overnight. Don't look at this as overnight. Just look at it as two different times of his life that was so far apart that he allowed himself to fall out of what he should have stayed true to. Remember the words, endure to the end. Okay, so his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord, as was David his father. To me, that saying is not perfect the same way David's heart wasn't perfect, but I think it also, some people might say that says his heart wasn't perfect, but David's was. And just in case you didn't, Joseph Smith translation says, and became as the heart of as David. So however you want to read that. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. It just seems like a weird combination, but it's because of his wives. And I don't understand why he does this, except that he is pulled into what his wives are doing. Instead of him influencing them, they are influencing him. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. And if you look in the footnote, again, it's very similar. Joseph Smith translates as David his father, and meaning he didn't go fully after the Lord as David his father, and went not fully after the Lord. Then Solomon built an high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab. So another one, Chemosh, on the hill that is before Jerusalem. So right by where the temple can be seen, most likely. And for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Really weird. And likewise did he all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because of his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. You know, he hadn't just had faith. He had the Lord appeared to him twice. Once when he was a little boy and he got the blessing of understanding heart, and then at the temple. But this is, why is he not concentrating on those things? He's not. And this is, I think, in the scriptures because of that, saying, you know what? He knew better. And he commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Therefore the Lord said unto Solomon, Forasmuch as ye have done forasmuch as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Notice the words, give it to thy servant. That will come later on. Notwithstanding that in the days I will not do it for David, thy father's sake. So even though David wasn't perfect before the Lord, he keeps the covenants that David did keep, which he said his kingdom would continue. But I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. So he'll keep the kingdom whole through Solomon's reign, but it's in his son's lifetime it will be taken away, and you'll see what that means. Howbeit, I will rend away the kingdom, but I will give one tribe to thy son David, my servant's sake, and Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. So it's not just David, but it's Jerusalem itself. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad, and Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass that David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom. So this is a story that things that David did are coming back to visit Solomon in his life. For 6 months did Joab remain there with Israel until he had cut off every male in Edom. Basically, they're making it so that they can't have any children of the Joabites, basically. And Hadad fled, and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him, to go into Egypt, Hadad being a little child. So he's a little child. Now, it seems like a really weird thing, because he's definitely not a Christ-like figure, but he is the same situation that happened with Jesus when he was a little child going off to Egypt to live. You should be able to see that in this, and how, remember, when he comes back to afflict Solomon is not the righteous person that he should have been. So it has that sort of hopefully it points you to Christ, even though Hadad's not a great guy either. And they arose out of Midian and came to Paran, and he took men with him out of Paran, and they came to Egypt unto the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, which gave him an house, and appointed him victuals, and gave him land. And Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so he gave him to wife the sister of his own wife, and the sister of Tahpenes, the queen. And the sister of Tahpenes bare him Genubeth, his son, whom Tahpenes weaned in Pharaoh's house. And Genubeth was in Pharaoh's household among the sons of Pharaoh. So he's really well acquainted with the Pharaoh now, and his family is accepted as if it was the Pharaoh's. That's how close they are. And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers, and that Joab, the captain of the host, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, Let me depart, that I may go to mine own country. And Pharaoh said unto him, But what hast thou lacked with me, that behold thou seekest to go to thine own country? And he answered, Nothing. Howbeit, let me go anyways. So he's saying, I love it here, but I have to do something. Now, the thing is, I don't know the timeline on this, because really this might be at the beginning of Solomon's reign, but we don't hear it in there. It sounds more like he waited quite a few years. I guess he had to grow up as well. I don't know. And God stirred him up another adversary, Rezin the son of Elidah, who fled from his lord Hadadzer, king of Zobah. He gathered men unto him, and became captain over a band. When David slew them of Zobah, and they went to Damascus, and went and dwelt therein, and reigned in Damascus. So now he's got two people because of of David, his father, on his back. Solomon does. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, because of the mischief that Hadad did. And he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. So he's going off the back of what Hadad's doing, and he's saying, hey, I can get in on this act. And Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zeradah, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zeruah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. And this was the cause he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Milo, and repaired the breaches of the city of his father. Now, I don't think he's gone, really? You built this? I think it's more like, really? You took money from poor people to build these things, is what I'm getting from it. And the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor. I think that's good to point out that he had these wonderful qualities, and Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. And it came to pass that at that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite found him in the way, and he had clad himself with a new garment, and they two were alone in the field. And before we find out what this all happens, we're going to read about it. And the prophet Ahijah tore his new coat into 12 pieces. Oh, that gives it away. And gave 10 of them to Jeroboam, and he then prophesied that the Lord would take the kingdom of Israel from Solomon, and give 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel to Jeroboam. Following the death of Solomon, his son Rehoboam became king over all of Israel. Rehoboam increased the people's burdens, which prompted the 10 northern tribes to rebel against him. They made Jeroboam their king, which fulfilled the words of the prophet Ahijah. This revolt divided the kingdom in two, the northern kingdom called Israel, and the southern kingdom called Judah. And the Lord promised Jeroboam that he would be with him if Jeroboam kept the commandments during his reign. Unfortunately, Jeroboam did not keep the commandments and led his people into idolatry. He and all his house were eventually destroyed from the earth. In subsequent generations, kings of Israel who did evil were often measured against the poor standard of Jeroboam. And that's so sad. So let's see what actually happens here. And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him, and rent it in 12 pieces. And he said to Jeroboam, take thee 10 pieces. For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hands of Solomon, and give 10 tribes to thee, and he shall have 1 tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of the tribes of Israel, because they have forsaken me, and have worshipped Astaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways, to do that which was right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes, my judgments, as did David. And again, every time, Joseph Smith's translation, and his heart is become as David his father, and he repenteth not as David his father, that as did David his father, that I may forgive him. Notice he says that he repented not as did David his father. The thing that made David so great is that he learned to repent. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life. For David my servant's sake, whom I chose, because he kept the commandments and my statutes. Notice there's no change in that. He did try to keep the commandments and statutes after he had repented. But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hands, and will give it to thee, even 10 tribes. And unto his son I will give 1 tribe. Just push the 1 here. Give 2 tribes. Because, of course, if you have 12 pieces, give 10 tribes, then there's 2 tribes left. Remembering that Benjamin will be the other tribe. That David my son may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there, and I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thy soul desireth, and shalt be king over Israel. And it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and wilt walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep the statutes, my judgments, as David my servant did, or Joseph Smith did in the day that I blessed him. Notice the difference. The Lord blesses people at certain times because of their righteousness, but they still may fall or do things that are wrong. That I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and will give Israel unto thee. And I will afflict the seed of David, but not forever. And again in the footnotes, and for the transgression of David, and also for the people, I have rent the kingdom, and for this I will afflict the seed of David, but not forever. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. What is it? Every single king has to try to kill someone. And Jeroboam rose and fled into Egypt unto Shishak, the king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. So he's in Egypt as well. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, and all that he did, and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon, which I don't think we have? And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over Israel was 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. And then we're going to go, and surely Rehoboam's is going to be a beautiful poster child. We'll see how that goes next time.